For 2 years, former Navy SEAL Logan Pierce, a man built from muscle and crushing guilt, sought refuge in the isolated, snow-choked peaks of the Cascade Mountains. His only lifeline to sanity was Zeus, his German Shepherd service dog, whose steady presence was the counterweight to the ghosts of missions past. But on a night the blizzard turned the world white, that fragile peace shattered. An injured woman crawled to his fence carrying a secret worth a human life. Before Logan could even dial for help, the power died, the phone line was severed, and a black tactical SUV appeared in the whiteout. What happened next will make you believe in loyalty, sacrifice, and God's perfect timing again. Before we dive into the blizzard, tell me where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. The Cascade Mountains of Washington State, in the heart of December, don't whisper. They roar. The afternoon had started with a deceptive, pale winter sun, but by 4 o'clock the sky had curdled into a vicious, churning gray. The wind, an invisible, brutal thing, slammed down the high mountain pass, a herald of the incoming maelstrom. In the small, isolated town of Leavenworth, 90 miles down the winding road, tourists were already being advised to shelter in place. Up here, on the private, unpaved logging road, there was no advice, only isolation. Logan Pierce was already isolated. He was 40 years old, a man built from granite and hard-won experience. His height, 6'2", was tempered by a lean, almost wiry musculature, a testament to years of rigorous training and the relentless pace of combat. His dark hair was close-cropped, and his jawline was perpetually set, as if clenching against an unseen force. His eyes, once a bright, piercing blue, now carried a perpetual shadow, a deep-seated weariness that no amount of sleep could cure. Logan was a former Navy SEAL, a veteran of several tours who had walked away after a disastrous mission in the Hindu Kush, a mission that earned him the nickname Vortex for the chaotic, violent nature of his work, but left him the sole survivor and heir to a crushing guilt. He had built this sturdy log cabin, more fortress than home, in the high Cascades 2 years ago, attempting to bury the man he used to be. He wore an old, faded green t-shirt and canvas work pants, the uniform of a man trying to forget he ever wore Kevlar. He was sitting in the gloom of his living room, the only light coming from the flickering screen of his heavy-duty laptop. He wasn't working, he was staring at the wall, but his mind was back in the dust and heat, listening to the static of dead comms. Suddenly, a heavy, warm presence settled on his thigh, a counterweight to the internal storm. This was Zeus, Logan's service dog. Zeus was a magnificent 5-year-old German Shepherd, a perfect specimen of the breed. He possessed a striking coat of silver gray and black, a noble, intelligent face, and eyes of deep amber that seemed to track Logan's soul. He wasn't a pet. He was a highly trained K9 bred for stability and service. Zeus's entire existence was calibrated to the micro-expressions and heart rate of his handler. He was Logan's anchor, specifically trained to intervene during a PTSD episode. The moment Zeus nudged his head under Logan's hand, the familiar, high-pitched whine that preceded a flashback began to dissipate. Logan reached down and ran his fingers over the thick fur of the dog's neck, breathing in sync with the slow, steady rhythm of the animal beside him. "Good boy, Zeus," he murmured, the words tight in his throat. Then the world outside broke. A sudden, violent gust hit the front of the cabin with the sound of a falling tree. The lights flickered, the laptop screen went black, and the silence that followed was absolute, heavy, and immediate. The storm had fully arrived, a whiteout. The total darkness was instantaneous, and it was the silence that almost broke Logan's fragile composure. In the quiet, the ghosts were louder. He felt the walls begin to press in, the temperature of the room drop 20 degrees, and the air grow thick, hard to breathe. He was not in Montana. He was back on the mountain, trapped in the rubble of a collapsed building. Before the panic could fully seize him, a sound ripped through the stillness that had nothing to do with memory. A deep, throaty, Arf! It was a bark Logan had only heard a handful of times in their years together. It wasn't playful, it wasn't curious, and it wasn't the alert bark he'd trained for a stranger at the door. It was the alpha call, pure, unadulterated warning of immediate, deadly threat. Zeus, rigid and coiled, was already moving. His claws scratched once on the wood floor before he launched himself. At the front door, slamming his nose against the wood and letting out a sustained, aggressive howl. "Zeus, hold," Logan commanded, the seal voice cutting through his lingering panic. The dog ignored him. He whined frantically, then began to rake his claws against the door. He looked back at Logan, his amber eyes wide with a frantic urgency that dissolved any remaining doubt in Logan's mind. This wasn't a deer. This was a person. Logan grabbed his heavy canvas jacket and pulled a powerful, tactical flashlight from a hook by the door. All right, I hear you," he muttered. He threw the heavy bolt and wrenched the door open. The wind screamed, instantly stealing his breath, and the snow hit him like thrown gravel. Zeus shot out into the vortex of white, a gray and black projectile already 30 feet away, plunging toward the southern perimeter fence. "Zeus, stay on me," Logan yelled, but the words were swallowed. Logan pulled his collar high and followed, the high-lumen beam of his flashlight cutting a weak, swirling cone in the blinding snow. His heart hammered, but the panic was gone, replaced by the cold, clear focus of the man he had tried to bury. He saw the dog stop near the twisted old barbed wire fence, barking now with short, sharp, urgent requests. Logan pushed through the rapidly deepening drifts. The beam settled on Zeus, and then on the dark shape the dog was standing over. It was a woman. She was young, possibly in her late 20s, crumpled against the bottom wire of the fence. Her hair, dark and matted with snow, framed a face that was terrifyingly pale, waxy white in the flashlight beam. She was dressed entirely wrong for this weather. A thin, dark quilted jacket, athletic pants, and worn running shoes. Logan dropped to one knee, the cold instantly soaking through his pants. He put 2 gloved fingers to the carotid artery in her neck. Nothing. He pressed harder, leaning in close to shield her from the wind. There it was, a faint, thready beat. Thump, thump, dangerously slow. She was alive, barely. His eyes scanned her body and fixed on the left shoulder. A sickening dark stain was spreading down her side, melting the snow it touched. Blood. His old training took over. The isolation he had deliberately sought was now an executioner. No power, no phone, no chance of calling search and rescue. "Zeus, watch her," Logan commanded. He looped his right arm under the woman's knees and his left arm across her back. He lifted her. She was light, a dead weight, and a groan escaped his lips from the exertion. He turned his back to the wind and began the long, agonizingly slow march back to the house. His fragile peace was shattered. The world and all its violence had just broken through the ice. He slammed the back door shut, the heavy wood and deadbolt cutting off the shriek of the blizzard. The silence rushed in, replaced by the sound of Logan's ragged breathing and the steady drip of melting snow from the woman he carried. He laid her on the thick bearskin rug in front of the massive stone fireplace. She was terrifyingly still, her lips tinged blue. Logan's mind was blessedly quiet. The chaos and the ghosts had evaporated, suppressed by the pure life-or-death algorithm of survival. This was muscle memory. He lit 2 small kerosene lamps, the flickering orange light pushing back the heavy shadows. He retrieved his medical gear. From the bottom of his hall closet, he pulled out a faded green canvas satchel. His jump bag, a relic from his last deployment, still stocked with military-grade supplies. He cut away the thin jacket and the layers beneath. The wound on her shoulder was ugly, a deep, ragged tear that looked like she'd been snagged and torn on the jagged edge of rock or maybe that old barbed wire fence. The cold had slowed the bleeding, but the shock was setting in fast. He worked with the detached efficiency of a trauma medic, cleaning the wound, his hands steady and sure. After administering an IV to combat the shock, he began the sutures, threading the curved needle with the practiced, delicate grace of a surgeon. "You're going to make it, ma'am," he murmured, focused only on the pull of the thread and the clean line of the closing skin. He finished the last stitch, applied a heavy gauze dressing, and wrapped her tightly in a thick wool blanket. As he was about to toss her wet, sodden jacket into a bucket, his fingers brushed against something small, hard, and perfectly square sewn into the lining near the collar. It didn't belong. Logan carried the jacket closer to the lamplight. His suspicion, the keen, honed instinct of a warrior, returned. He pulled out his pocket knife and carefully slit the stitches. He pushed his fingers into the opening and pulled out the object. It was a small, black plastic square, no bigger than a quarter, sealed tightly, and on its surface a tiny green light, no larger than a pinprick, was blinking with a slow, steady rhythm. A tracker. Logan's blood ran cold. The silence of the room was now absolute. Every instinct he had honed over 2 decades of warfare screamed at him. This was not an accident. She was hunted, and she brought the hunt to your door. He looked from the blinking green light to the unconscious woman by his fire. This was Alara Vance. She was thin and exhausted, her clothes expensive but nondescript. She didn't look like a spy or an operative, but the object in his hand was undeniable. His mind raced. He knew he couldn't destroy the tracker. That would just tell her pursuers that the signal had stopped at this specific location. He had to spoof it. He went to the kitchen, grabbed a sheet of aluminum foil and wrapped the tracker tightly, sealing the small bundle in a waterproof plastic baggie meant for camping matches. "Zeus," he commanded, his voice a low, hard growl. "Watch her. Guard." Zeus, sensing the change in his master's demeanor, planted himself beside Alara's head, his body rigid, his dark eyes fixed on the door. Logan pulled his heavy coat back on, snatched his hat, and plunged back out into the maelstrom. The wind almost knocked him off the porch. He pushed through the blizzard, boots sinking to his shins, fighting his way to the rushing, half-frozen creek that marked the western edge of his property. He found a heavy, waterlogged pine log lodged in the icy mud at the bank. His fingers numb, he used a length of paracord from his pocket to tie the foil-wrapped package tightly to the log. He gave it 2 quick checks, stood, and shoved the heavy log into the main current. It bobbed once, then was swept away, disappearing into the white fury of the storm in seconds, carrying its blinking green signal far down the canyon. Logan had bought time. He fought his way back inside, securing the door, the cold now settled deep in his bones. As he shed his snow-caked coat, he turned to the fireplace. Nothing had changed, yet everything had. The lamp flickered, the fire crackled, and the woman's eyes were open. She was staring not at him, but at the empty space where his jump bag sat, then at the IV line still in her arm, then at the dressing on her shoulder. Her eyes were wide, dark, and filled with a frantic animal terror. Logan didn't move from his position by the door, still shedding melted snow from his canvas jacket. The young woman, Alara Vance, remained on the bearskin rug, her face, now that the initial shock was receding, etched with fear and exhaustion. The IV line in her arm was the only tether to the world of medicine. Her eyes, large and dark, tracked Logan with the frantic, calculating gaze of a cornered animal. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice a dry rasp that scratched the heavy silence. Logan ignored the question, letting the silence stretch thin, taut between his suspicion and her terror. He crossed his arms, his massive build a silent barrier. "I found this." He pulled the small waterproof baggie containing the foil-wrapped tracker from his pocket and tossed it onto the stone hearth. "I dumped the signal miles from here, so let's try this again. Who are you, and who is hunting you?" Alara flinched, staring at the object. She knew what it was. Her voice, though shaky, gained a desperate edge. "My name is Alara Vance. I'm a data analyst. I worked for the Citadel." She struggled to sit up, stifling a gasp as the movement pulled at her fresh sutures. Logan watched her, unmoved. "They are an R&D company, ostensibly biotechnology. I found proof they were running illegal vaccine trials, testing on marginalized, vulnerable populations. I copied the data." She motioned weakly toward the spot where Logan had found the USB. "They want the drive back, and they want me silent." Logan's gaze hardened. He had seen the way corporations blurred the lines of morality, but this felt different. "And the people they sent to clean up your mess, what are they?" "They're called Stiletto Security," Ilara explained, her voice gaining strength driven by the urgency of her story. "They are a private military firm. Not guards, fixers. They are the ones who killed my contact, Ryan, in a parking garage. They didn't even use a silencer. They just executed him. They are specialists, not cops." Logan knew that distinction. He had worked with men like that, men who existed in the shadows between law and war. He had been one. His tactical mind, already spinning through contingency plans, began mapping out a whole new threat profile. This wasn't local. This was systemic, lethal, and Tier 1. All the while, Zeus, the German shepherd, had been watching. The dog did something that stunned Logan. He stood, walked slowly to Ilara's side, and nudged his massive head under her hand, letting out a low, soft woof. This was the same dog who had ignored every stranger for 5 years. Zeus was not just protecting his handler, he was protecting her. This simple, undeniable act of animal loyalty chipped away at the granite wall of Logan's suspicion. "I don't trust you," Logan said, his voice flat, "but I trust him." He turned and walked toward the small closet off the kitchen. He retrieved a heavy, olive-drab hard case and keyed in the combination. Inside, nestled in foam, was his lifeline, an iridium satellite phone. "We can't call the police. They'll be here in hours," Ilara said, voicing his exact thought. "I'm not calling the police," Logan replied, powering up the device. "I'm calling a specialist." He dialed a number etched into his long-term memory. It rang 3 times before a voice, sharp and energetic even over the faint satellite hiss, answered. "Vortex? Logan, man, where the hell are you? You sound like you're calling from the bottom of the Mariana Trench." This was Marcus Midas Cole, a contemporary of Logan from his SEAL days, though Cole had transferred out years ago to work in SIGINT, Signals Intelligence, and Cyber Warfare. Cole was a lean man in his late 30s, perpetually dressed in bespoke suits despite his highly technical background, with sharp, focused eyes and a lightning-fast mind. He now ran a high-end, discreet security consultation firm, specializing in data extraction and protection, a perfect mix of soldier and genius. "Montana, maybe?" Logan lied, his eyes scanning the windows. "Listen, Midas, I'm dark. Landlines and cell are dead. I have a package. High-value data. Needs immediate extraction. Hostile environment. Tier 1. The playful banter instantly vanished from Cole's voice. "Tier 1? What did you walk into, Logan? The package?" "Irrefutable proof of corporate black ops and a wet work execution. Video file," Logan summarized, keeping his eyes on Ilara. "The operators are Stiletto Security." There was a pregnant pause on the line. Cole knew the name Stiletto. "Confirmed last, Logan?" "Confirmed last," Logan affirmed. "I have the witness and the drive. I need a secure uplink. I need to get this file to you fast. The blizzard is my only cover, but it won't hold them forever. A burst transmission from Iridium is going to be slow, but it's secure," Cole conceded. "I'll set up the handshake on my end. Encrypt your upload, send me the coordinates for a dead drop on my server." "Got it," Logan said, his fingers already flying across the keypad. As the slow process of establishing the secure server connection began, a new, heavy rumble cut through the howl of the wind, a sound that was too low, too steady, and too close to be thunder. Logan snapped the satellite phone shut. "They're here," he breathed. He moved Alara, the IV stand rolling clumsily, into the darkened hallway leading to his bedroom closet, giving her the briefest instruction. Silent. Do not move, not for anything. Logan grabbed a heavy, antique 12-gauge pump shotgun from the corner by the stone fireplace, pumping the action with a definitive clack-clack. Through the swirling white vortex past the main window, 2 brilliant white beams appeared, cutting through the snow, high off the ground, belonging to a serious off-road vehicle. The engine idled for a long moment before cutting out. A solid thud as a door closed, then measured, confident footsteps crunching on the snow-dusted wood of the porch. Not frantic, not hurried. A polite, firm knock came at the door. Rap, rap, rap. Logan stood to the side of the door, the shotgun held low. He took a breath and opened it just 6 inches, shielding the interior. The man standing on his porch was a contradiction. The storm raged around him, yet he seemed immaculate, untouched. This was Daniel Cutter Hayes, the representative of Stiletto Security. Cutter was tall and powerfully built, maybe mid-40s, with a meticulously maintained beard dusted lightly with snow and cold, emotionless gray eyes that missed nothing. He wore high-end, matte black tactical gear that looked more like expensive sportswear than military issue. He was smiling, a calm, pleasant, unnerving smile. "Mr. Pierce?" Cutter asked, his voice smooth and cultivated, not raised over the wind. "You're trespassing," Logan said, his voice a low growl. "Terrible storm, sir. My apologies for the intrusion. I'm Daniel Hayes, with Stiletto." "Security," Cutter said the name as if it were a luxury brand. "We're looking for a colleague, a young woman. Distressed, maybe injured. Wandered off from a vehicle recovery site just up the ridge. Haven't seen anyone, have you?" "Haven't seen a soul," Logan said, holding the man's gaze. "Just me and the storm." Cutter's smile tightened just a fraction. He tilted his head, listening to the wind. "That's odd," he said, his voice still perfectly pleasant. "Because we noticed your phone line was down at the main road. Probably the storm." Cutter's eyes glanced past Logan's head toward the utility pole near the corner of the house. "And our drone caught 2 distinct thermal signatures inside just before the weather got too thick to fly. Your equipment must be wrong, Mr. Pierce." The lie hung exposed in the air. Cutter knew. This wasn't a search. This was confirmation. Logan felt his heart hammer. His skin prickled. "My equipment's wrong. It glitches in the cold." "Pity," Cutter said, his smile returning full force. "Well, my apologies for the intrusion. If you do see her, please let us know. We're extremely keen on getting her back." He reached into his pocket, produced a matte black business card with just the stylized Stiletto logo and a number, and placed it carefully on the railing before turning and walking back to his black SUV. Logan slammed the door and threw the deadbolt, his breath coming in sharp, shallow gasps. He pressed his back against the heavy wood, the shotgun feeling impossibly heavy in his hands. He was compromised. Logan stood rigid against the heavy front door, the solid wood vibrating under the weight of the continuing blizzard. Cutter's departure was not a retreat. It was an act of deliberate confirmation, a predator confirming its prey was contained. Logan didn't waste time in fear. The minute he heard the heavy engine of the black SUV fade into the white noise of the storm, the switch flipped. The hermit was gone, replaced by the operator. "We move," Logan barked, his voice tight and clipped. He swung the shotgun up, engaging the safety with a decisive click. He found Alara Vance exactly where he'd left her, huddled in the hallway closet. She emerged, pale but resolute, clutching the IV pole. Her eyes, wide with the terror of a civilian caught in a war, met his. "What did he want? What was that about the heat?" "He was telling me he knows you're here, and he knows we can't call out," Logan said, his mind already 3 steps ahead. "The thermal drone was real. That means every exterior, wall, every window is a potential kill zone. This house is now a target. He began immediately converting the home into a combat outpost. He moved with the practiced, economical efficiency of a man who had done this under heavy fire. The great picture window facing the valley, a blessing hours ago, was now a liability. He shoved the heavy leather sofa and an oak bookcase in front of it, creating a solid wall of wood and upholstery. He reinforced the kitchen and back doors with chairs jammed under the knobs. As he worked, he instructed Alara. "You said you found proof of a murder. That means this USB is their primary objective, and you are the secondary. They will not stop. They will sterilize the site." Alara, despite her injury, watched him with a strange, fascinated clarity. "What can I do?" "You stay low," Logan commanded, pulling out his Navy-issue M40 gas mask carrier, a heavy canvas bag, which he repurposed for Alara's needs. He placed his satellite phone and the precious USB drive inside it. "You stay away from exterior walls. You don't make a sound." Logan moved to the kitchen counter, setting up his Iridium phone beside the USB drive. He needed the file to clear the cache before Stiletto breached the compound. He plugged the phone's cable into the drive and initiated the secure upload to Marcus Cole's server. The process was glacially slow. A satellite burst transmission was not built for multi-gigabyte video files. The small monochrome screen of the Iridium flickered, showing uploading 2%. Suddenly, the screen changed. The percentage vanished, replaced by a jarring aggressive warning. Signal interference detected. Logan stared at it, the blood draining from his face. No. He cycled the power, toggled the antenna, moved the phone to a different corner of the room. The result was the same. A faint electronic hiss from the earpiece and the ceaseless mocking warning on the screen. "They're jamming me," Logan growled, the words feeling like stones in his mouth. While Cutter was on the porch playing games, his team was setting up a tactical jamming field. "They've created an electronic bubble, isolating us completely." The realization hit him with the force of a breaching charge. The snow wasn't his cover, it was theirs. They were using it to ensure he couldn't call out, turning his sanctuary into a pressurized cage before the breach. The walls began to press in. The whine started, not from the storm, but in his head. It was high-pitched, metallic, drowning out the crackle of the fire. Logan leaned against the rough-hewn log wall, the shotgun clattering to the floor. The feeling of being pinned down, surrounded, cut off, was visceral. He was back in the shattered ravine, watching his team bleed out, the comms dead, the air thin and choked with dust. He pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes, trying to force the images back. "Isaac!" Alara's voice seemed 1,000 miles away. Correction. Ilara. His body slid down the wall. He was losing his anchor, drifting back into the dark well of memory. A heavy weight slammed into his chest, knocking the air from him. His eyes flew open. Zeus was on him. The German shepherd, 5 years old, silver gray and black fur, had his massive front paws firmly planted on Logan's shoulders, his intelligent amber eyes inches from his owner's face. The dog wasn't nudging, he was pushing, a solid, insistent counterpressure against the panic attack. Zeus let out a sharp, concerned whine, a sound that cut through the ringing in Logan's head. Logan's hands, which had been shaking violently, flew up and gripped the dog's thick ruff. He stared into those unwavering eyes. Zeus just pushed harder, forcing Logan to breathe. "I'm here, boy," Logan choked out, taking a ragged, shuddering breath, then another. The ringing faded. The walls snapped back into place. He looked past the dog at Alara. She was watching him, not with judgment, but with a strange, profound understanding. She had just seen the vortex up close. Logan pushed Zeus gently off his chest and stood up. The fear was gone from his voice, replaced by a cold, hard-edged resolve. The seal had fully resurfaced. "They're jamming the sat phone," he said, his voice flat and hard as steel. "That means the jammer is just a bubble, A localized field. We get out of the bubble. We get the signal." He picked up the phone and shoved it into the satchel. "Where is out of the bubble?" Alara asked, her voice trembling but steady. "The ridge," Logan stated, moving toward his bedroom. "It's the highest point on the property. It should clear the interference. That's the only way this ends, short of them kicking down the door." He pulled out his Remington 700 hunting rifle and 2 boxes of ammunition from a steel lockbox. The rifle was heavy, chambered in .30-06, a long-range tool. It wasn't standard issue, but it was reliable. "You can't go back out." "There," Alara pleaded, finally finding her voice. "That's what he wants." "Harris." "No, Cutter, he's out there." "They are out there whether I go or not," Logan countered, checking the bolt action on the rifle. "This drive is the only thing that matters. They cut the line, they jammed the phone, they know where we are. We're on the clock now. I have to get outside that jammer." He slung the rifle and handed Alara the tough canvas satchel containing the USB and the phone. "Lock this door behind me," Logan commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Barricade it with the chair. Do not open it for any sound other than my voice. Understand?" Alara nodded, her knuckles white on the canvas strap. Logan looked down at Zeus. The dog was already poised to follow, vibrating with protective energy. "No, boy," Logan commanded, his voice firm. "Guard, you stay. Watch her." Zeus let out a low, conflicted whine, his loyalty torn between his 2 masters. But the command was absolute. He sat, his dark eyes tracking Logan, his body a solid anchor for Alara. Logan checked his sidearm, a Sig Sauer P226 he carried concealed. He unlocked the back door, the chair scraping against the floor, and slipped out, disappearing instantly into the screaming white chaos. Logan burst out the back door, the whiteout hitting him with the force of a physical assault. The wind was a solid wall of ice, stealing his breath and clawing at his exposed skin. He immediately dropped into a low crouch, the Remington 700 hunting rifle slung tight across his chest. He was alone. He had left Zeus behind. "Too predictable," he muttered to himself, correcting the error of leaving his anchor behind. He was relying purely on the cold, hard logic of the operator now. He moved not toward the ridge immediately, but toward the woodshed, using the heavy timber structure as his first piece of cover. His training took over. Move, pause, scan, listen. Every howling gust sounded like footsteps. Every shadow thrown by his weak flashlight beam looked like a man. It took him 15 agonizing minutes just to cover the 100 yards to the tree line where the slope began. The climb up the ridge was brutal. The snow was well past his shins, the wind funneled and amplified by the ravine. His lungs burned, the frigid air feeling like it was tearing his throat. He relied on pure muscle memory, forcing himself upward. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Alara Vance sat crouched in the dark living room, the IV pole discarded, clutching the heavy canvas satchel containing the USB and the iridium phone. Her hands were shaking. Zeus, the German shepherd, sat beside her, his body a silent, unwavering statue of silver gray and black fur. He was focused on the back door where Logan had vanished. Alara had never handled a weapon, but the image of Ryan Cole's execution was burned into her mind, replacing fear with cold, hard resolve. She picked up the 12-gauge pump shotgun Logan had left her, fumbling with the crossbolt safety, remembering his instruction. Point at the center of the chest. After what felt like an hour, Logan reached the summit, a small granite outcropping that was partially windswept and bare of snow. The wind. Here was not a howl. It was a high-pitched, deafening shriek. He dropped behind the largest boulder, pulling the satchel off his shoulder. His fingers were already stiff and clumsy with cold. He powered on the iridium. The screen flickered, the signal interference detected warning flashed, stuttered, and vanished. He had 2 bars, a weak, pathetic signal, but it was a signal. He connected the hard drive, his hands shaking, and dialed Marcus Cole's number. "Logan, I was waiting." Cole's voice was a tinny burst of static, but it was real. "I'm on the ridge, Midas, outside the jammer, sending the package now. It's slow." "I'm on it," Cole confirmed. "The server is open. Keep the connection steady. What's your cover, Vortex?" "Blizzard," Logan gritted out, his eyes scanning the swirling white darkness. "Uploading. 19%, 20%. He was exposed. A human beacon broadcasting a signal on a mountaintop. He was a statue, waiting for the upload to complete. Miles away, hidden in the thermal opacity of the blizzard, Shaw, the Stiletto team's sniper, saw him. Shaw was a ghost, a man in his mid-50s, impossibly patient, dressed in layered white tactical gear. He had spent 2 hours scanning the mountainside through a high-end thermal scope. The world to him was a grainy, shifting landscape of cold blue and purple. But then, 2 bright, beautiful sparks of white-hot energy appeared on the ridge, a larger one kneeling, and a smaller one next to it. "Target confirmed on the west ridge," Shaw spoke into his comms, his voice a calm monotone. "He's static, trying the sat phone." Cutter's voice crackled back. "Take the shot." Shaw settled the crosshairs of his scope directly on the center of the larger heat signature. He let out half a breath. The wind was a variable, but the target was stationary. He squeezed the trigger. On the ridge, the number climbed. 94%, 95%. Logan didn't hear the bang of the rifle. That was miles away, lost in the storm. He heard the sharp, distinct pop of the supersonic bullet breaking the sound barrier as it passed him, a terrifying, instantaneous warning that death was already in the air. In that instant, 3 things happened. 1. The pop registered in Logan's brain. Sniper. His muscle memory screamed. He was already twisting, diving for the ground. 2. The bullet hit. A white-hot, searing fire ripped through his right shoulder, his dominant shooting arm. It felt like being hit by a cinder block. 3. The sat phone flew from his grasp, skittering across the rock. Logan crashed into a snowdrift, his face plunging into the icy powder. The pain was blinding. He gasped, but the wind stole his breath. He was hit. He fought the agony, crawling toward the phone. His teeth gritted against the fire in his shoulder. He dragged his useless arm, finding the iridium screen up in the snow. Upload complete. "Midas!" he yelled hoarsely into the device. "It's sent. I'm hit." He got no reply. Just static. The phone, jarred by the impact, was dead. "Time to go," he gasped, pushing himself to his feet. He grabbed the Remington with his left hand, the powerful bolt-action rifle feeling foreign and awkward. He began the agonizing descent, the blizzard covering his bloody tracks. The front door of the cabin exploded inward, the heavy wood splintering as Daniel Cutter Hayes, mid-40s, tactical gear, and his partner, Blade, a muscular, silent white male in his late 20s, also in matte black gear, kicked it in. They found the barricaded windows and the blood, but no victims. They found the empty IV bag and the bloody bandages. "He's hit," Cutter snarled into his comms. "He's wounded. Find the damn woman in the drive." Cutter's instinct was good. He immediately spotted the faint drag marks leading to the trapdoor to the basement, where the old generator room was housed. "Blade, clear the basement," Cutter ordered. "I'll take the main floor." Blade. The partner was the infiltration specialist, agile and quiet. He dropped into the dark maw of the basement, flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, looking for the witness. Logan had anticipated this. He had only retreated 50 yards from the house, moving to the woodshed before circling back to a low exterior window of the basement. He didn't want the basement cleared. He wanted Blade isolated. Logan waited by the old oil heater near the corner of the basement, his right arm dangling uselessly, the Remington gripped awkwardly in his left hand. Blade was focused on the far wall, where the generator hummed, looking for a place to hide a human. Logan didn't shoot. He dropped the rifle. It was not a fight. It was a takedown. Logan, moving with the terrifying efficiency of a man who trains to kill with his hands, slammed his left shoulder into Blade's back, driving him forward into the thick steel casing of the heater. Blade went down in a grunt of pain. Logan mounted him, trapping his arms. "Stiletto doesn't get to walk out of my house," Logan hissed. He twisted Blade's wrist, then his arm, until he heard a sickening snap, a dislocated elbow. Blade was neutralized, collapsing unconscious from the sudden, blinding pain. The sound of the struggle had masked the movement upstairs. Cutter, having cleared the main floor, was now standing at the top of the basement stairs, pistol drawn, looking down. "Pierce!" Cutter's voice was cold, lethal, filled with predatory satisfaction. Logan looked up at his last surviving target. Cutter had him trapped. Logan's right arm was useless and his knife was out of reach. "The drive is gone, Cutter," Logan whispered, panting, using the delay to assess the distance. "Midas has the package." Cutter's cold eyes widened only slightly in momentary confusion. "Then you are no longer necessary." He leveled his pistol. Logan moved not to fight but to survive. He feigned a lunge toward the stairs. Cutter fired, the shot muffled in the basement's stone walls. Logan rolled and kicked out with his powerful right leg, connecting squarely with the top step, using the leverage to destabilize Cutter's footing. Cutter stumbled, falling 2 steps. Logan seized the opportunity. He lunged and grappled using his uninjured left arm and his powerful legs. It was pure close-quarters combat, instinct and weight against training and speed. They tumbled together. Logan used his weight, driving his knee into Cutter's thigh. He twisted, using an old SEAL disarm technique, a full-body lock and twist, and drove Cutter's knee backward against the unyielding stone wall. A terrible, wet crunch echoed in the small space. Cutter screamed, a raw, inhuman sound as his kneecap shattered. He collapsed, clutching his ruined leg, the pistol sliding uselessly across the floor. Logan stood over him, panting, blood soaking his shoulder. The threat was contained. The basement air was cold, thick with the metallic smell of blood and the faint reek of generator fuel. Logan was panting, leaning heavily against the stone wall. His right shoulder was a dead weight, screaming in agony. Downstairs, Daniel "Cutter" Hayes was sobbing, a broken mess clutching his shattered knee, and Blade lay unconscious near the oil heater. Logan had neutralized the threat, but he was bleeding out. He moved on instinct. He grabbed the roll of heavy-duty duct tape from Blade's discarded gear pouch and descended the steps, wincing with every movement of his shoulder. He quickly and efficiently secured both men, ensuring they were bound and unable to move. He located the old root cellar, a heavy, ancient oak door banded with iron set into the foundation wall. He dragged Cutter, the man's screams muffled by the duct tape over his mouth, and shoved him inside onto the dirt floor, then slammed the door shut and secured the thick iron bolt. Blade followed, neutralized but contained. The internal threat was sealed away. Logan staggered back up the stairs and into the kitchen. Elara Vance stood by the counter. She had retrieved the Sig Sauer P226 he carried, holding it with trembling hands, but she hadn't fired. Her eyes were wide, fixed not on his wounds but on his face. She had just witnessed the man of war, the Vortex, in action. "You're hurt," she whispered, her voice rough. "I'm stable," Logan gasped, his priority shifting. He crossed the living room in 3 heavy steps. Zeus was no longer rigid. He was lying near the hearth, letting out a low, constant whimper of pain. He hadn't been kicked during Logan's absence, but the earlier confrontation with Cutter on the porch, before Logan went up the ridge, had been more violent than Logan had realized. He found the dog's ribcage, his fingers identifying the unnatural give of broken bones. "He's hurt bad," Logan murmured, dropping to his knees, ignoring the searing pain in his own shoulder. Elara moved. The fear of Logan was instantly replaced by a focus on the immediate, solvable problem. She rushed forward, grabbing his jump bag and kneeling beside the dog. She wasn't a medic, but she was intelligent and determined. "My father, he was a vet," she said, her voice strained. "He taught me stabilization. Ribs need binding." While Logan, using his good left hand and Alara's assistance, expertly wrapped Zeus's chest tightly to prevent a punctured lung, Alara turned her attention to Logan's shoulder. She cut away his bloody jacket, cleaned the wound, and applied a tight pressure dressing. As they worked, the iridium phone, which Logan had placed on the counter, chirped. It was a single, coded text message. Logan lifted the phone with his uninjured hand. The screen displayed, "Package delivered. Confirmation received. Ops underway. Status: green." "Midas," Logan breathed, a wave of profound relief washing over him, momentarily dulling the pain. "The file is through. The upload worked." They waited. The fire crackled, the only sound besides their strained breathing and the low, shallow whimpering of Zeus. The blizzard raged outside, but slowly, imperceptibly, its intensity began to wane. Then, just before dawn, the wind died. The silence that fell over the Cascade Mountain Pass was sudden, deep, and heavy, the final absolute peace after the tempest. Hours later, the peace was shattered again, this time not by violence, but by hope. They heard it, the clear, distant sound of a siren, growing steadily closer, a thin ribbon of sound cutting through the newly settled snow. The vehicle that arrived was not a SWAT van, but a Montana Highway Patrol SUV. A man stepped out, a trooper in his early 50s, with a weathered face and a thick mustache. Trooper Davis. "I got a call, highly prioritized, coded satellite burst," Trooper Davis said, his voice pragmatic, taking in the splintered front door and the blood on the snow. "A possible homicide in progress, originating from a secure source. I wasn't expecting this." Logan, leaning heavily against the porch railing, his left arm supporting the weight, his right shoulder immobile, raised his good hand. "He's in the root cellar, Trooper. The man hunting us. He's alive. The other one is secured in the basement." Alara stepped forward, pale but steady, holding the tough canvas satchel containing the now empty USB drive. "It's all here, Trooper, on video. The man who ordered the murder is Cutter. He works for the Citadel." Trooper Davis was methodical. He secured Hayes and Blade. He confirmed the coded SAT message. And then the black SUVs arrived, 3 silent, efficient vehicles that crunched onto the snow-covered driveway. The man who stepped out was Special Agent Dunn of the FBI, a tall, sharp-featured man in his late 40s wearing a clean trench coat over his windbreaker. He walked directly to Logan and Alara. "Mr. Pierce. Miss Vance. Your friend, Marcus Cole, has been working with my office for 12 hours, Agent Dunn said, his voice crisp. "We've been building a file on the Citadel and Stiletto security for months. We had everything but the smoking gun. Your video, Miss Vance, is the keystone. You two just brought down an entire empire." Alara finally let go. The weight of the last 72 hours, the fear, the grief for Ryan Cole, washed over her. She buried her face in her hands, the sobs a ragged, raw sound of total release. Logan watched her, the tension draining out of him. An EMT was guiding him toward the ambulance. "My dog," Logan said, his voice flat. "He's being rushed to the veterinary hospital in town right now, sir," the EMT assured him gently. "He'll be patched up before you are." It was over. 3 months later, the Cascade Mountains had shed their winter coat, replaced by the deep, vivid green of late spring. Logan stood on his porch. His cabin was a home again, not a fortress. The physical scars remained, a puckered line on his right shoulder, a slight stiffness when he rotated his arm, but the internal scars were fading. He was seeing a VA therapist, Dr. Evans, regularly. He was fighting the last war, the one inside his own head, and for the first time, He was not fighting it alone. A sleek black SUV pulled up the drive. It wasn't the FBI or Stiletto. It was Marcus Cole, Logan's old teammate, stepping out of the car, dressed in a sharp Italian suit that somehow looked completely appropriate for the wilderness. "Logan," Cole said, offering a genuine smile. "The Citadel is done. The data held up. You and Alara saved lives." "Good," Logan replied simply. He looked past Cole. Ilara Vance stepped out of the passenger side. She looked different. Her dark hair was styled, her clothes were bright, and her eyes, though still holding a deep seriousness, were clear. She was no longer running. She was volunteering for a human rights organization, using her technical skills to process information legally. "I found a new anchor," she told Logan, a small warm smile reaching her eyes. Just then, a flash of silver gray and black shot around the corner of the house. Zeus. His ribs had healed perfectly. His limp was gone. He bounded onto the porch, his tail a joyful blur, not stopping for a command. He dropped a frayed tennis ball at Logan's feet, his amber eyes bright, demanding a game. He was just a dog, happy and whole. Logan looked at the tennis ball, then at Alara, then at Cole. He had been anchored to the past by guilt and PTSD. Zeus had been his mechanical anchor, dragging him back from the darkness. Now, the dog was free to be his companion, leading him toward a future that included purpose, peace, and shared silence with Alara. Logan bent down, his hand perfectly steady, and picked up the ball. "Go get it, boy," he said. Zeus launched off the porch, a streak of joy across the green grass. Logan watched him, a slow, genuine smile spreading across his face, the best one he had worn in 12 years. The bond between a human and an animal is a quiet, profound promise. When we face the storms of life, the things that truly save us are often the quietest: the unconditional loyalty of a service dog, the courage to share the burden, and the simple, abiding truth that God places anchors in our path. Logan's storm was the darkness of memory, but his salvation was the faith he placed in his dog, which ultimately led him to a new purpose. We may feel isolated, cut off, and surrounded by the whiteout of despair, but there is always a higher power working, using the most unexpected creatures to lead us back to the light. May you always recognize the anchors placed in your life. If this story of faith, courage, and unconditional love touched your heart, we encourage you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Feel free to comment below, subscribe to our channel for more stories of hope, and may God bless you and keep you safe.